The leads don't suck. You suck. People aren't really realizing how important that first minute is. You think about TikTok and Facebook Reels and how short our attention spans are now as human beings. We are ruined. Like, especially post-COVID, our attention spans are terrible. And so if somebody fills out a lead and then you don't contact them, you contact them 10 minutes later, they might have already forgotten that they even filled out the form. It's like you're way too late.
Hey everybody, Jeff Dudan here, and welcome to The Homefront. If you dropped out of high school, became a stand-up comedian, and with his brother created a windshield repair business going door to door, if you scaled this business by expanding it to 9 car dealerships and leveraging text message automation, if you then generated $2 million by creating an education platform and enrolled 1,000 students to build their own windshield repair business, and finally, if in 2018 you created CHIRP, a technology platform for converting leads to booked appointments using automated text, email, and voice messages, and if today you are single-handedly responsible for more conversions than the Spanish Inquisition, and your 3 F's are faith, family, and funnels, your name can only be Ryan Fenn. Welcome, Ryan.
Now that was an introduction, Jeff. Thank you very much.
That is yours. That's your introduction. Do you believe it when you hear it? How great it is?
Oh, man, that was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, brother. Good to have you on. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm happy to be here. Excited to talk. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, man. So I did give some highlights to, how you grew up, but it's a great story. Would you mind sharing a little bit about kind of your early life and maybe your early business and, your family, how it was all tied into that? Because it's a fascinating story and has to be so inspirational for so many of the entrepreneurs that listen to us on the Homefront. Sure.
And thank you for the opportunity to share it. It's a very non-conventional path that I've taken. I grew up in Southern California. My family is very Christ-oriented, religious. We're from the LDS culture, and I was always at a very young age. I kind of just had this confidence, just this really. I don't know. It's kind of a weird confidence. My parents were always kind of shocked by it. I liked selling things at school. I sold gumballs at school and candy and different things always trying to make money. And like, I don't know. I just had this confidence. And when I turned 16, I really didn't want to be in school anymore. I wanted to get out and just hustle. And I dropped out of high school. I took the test that California has a test you can take called the California High School Equivalency. I wasn't bad at school. I did fine. I could get good grades. It wasn't that I was stupid or anything.
No, man. Did it seem like it took forever during the day?
Oh yeah. I just couldn't handle being there. It's like every day was a battle being there,
Yeah, I was the same, and I didn't get poor. I've said before that I got a 4.0, but that was 2.5 semesters added together. And,
right.
But then I went and took the college placement test, and I scored really high on it. And my counselor called me and he's like, these grades and this test score it doesn't equate. So I guess maybe traditional school wasn't really for me. Sounds like the same for you.
I think, maybe it's ADHD. I don't like putting these titles or these diagnosis on things. I think everybody's got their own kind of individual thing that they have, but probably would be diagnosed with ADHD if I went down that path. But I see that more as a positive than a negative. I have embraced that. But at 18, I kind of went out. I sold cars for a while. Did a lot of different sales jobs and did different things. And then in our church, we serve a mission for 2 years. So I went to the Philippines for 2 years and I learned their language and spent time in huts and eating fish and rice on the beach with families and stuff. So that was a really cool experience. And then came home and kind of bounced around, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was always a for sure thing. But I didn't, really know exactly what that was going to be. I would go to school. My parents really wanted me to go to school. And so I would I would take a semester. I would do it here and there. And like, I, would tell them, oh yeah, I'm going to school, but I hated it. Didn't like, I finished a little bit, but I didn't, it was just like community college stuff that I would just go to just to kind of make them, happy. Cause I didn't have a leg to stand on cause I hadn't accomplished anything, so it was like, I kind of was arguing between what was in my head and what they wanted. And so, there was a point, and it was, I got married at 25, and, I met my wife in, March, and we were married in July. So,
is she from the church?
Yeah, we met through the church. Yeah, and we, we moved back to California. I was actually living in Utah at the time. Moved back to California, and we had our first son, Maddox, and we moved up to Utah because California is just not a good environment for starting a business, especially when you're have no idea what you're doing. And so I didn't want to deal with that. And Utah seemed a little more friendly for that. And, culturally it was a little better better for my kids. And so I had my firstborn son, and I had about $500 in the bank. And it was like, dang, man, if I don't make something happen, my kid's going to go hungry. It was like my back was against the wall. And it was like the trigger I needed to really put me into entrepreneur mode. Cause everything I had done before was just, for selfish, reasons, or for my, for my own fulfillment. And I could really push myself far enough to just support myself and make enough money to like survive and be comfortable as a single person. But once I had a kid, it was like backs against the wall, let's get to work. We had this, we paid our first month's rent and up in Utah, and I had, like I said, about $500 left. And I made a promise. I was like, my parents they were reasonably successful. My dad was a home builder, and we always were comfortable. There was never like, he's not rich by any means, but we were always comfortable and successful. And so, but I promised myself and I promised my wife that I would never reach out to my parents for support, to take care of our kids. And so, it's funny because I looked on Craigslist. I was like, I need to find a good sales job. So I went on Craigslist, and I saw this guy advertising for windshield repair. And it's one of those moments, I don't know if you've had them, Jeff, but there's moments like when you look back on your life, there's those moments where you look at them and you can remember them really clearly as like turning points, like along the journey. And that one still is like this, like I can see myself looking at that ad still. And it was like a very, I consider these like the moments in life where God is lighting up the path kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of taking these steps. And, I can look back at several points along the journey and I can look at those, but this was definitely one of them when I saw this ad and I was like, windshield repair. Yeah.
Yeah. I call it inflection points. And I, in my story, I share that there was, I was driving, home, from Hurricane Katrina after setting up, and it was the middle of the night. I was driving overnight through Atlanta to get home to see my son's first football season that I was missing. I had 3 small children at the time. And I decided in that moment that I was going to sell all of our company stores under a franchise model because I was constantly on the road. I mean, we were working in Hawaii, California, the Caribbean, now the Gulf Coast. And I was missing them growing up. And, inflection points have 3 things. People are involved. You just had a son. People that you're responsible for, people that you want to do something with, or sometimes people you want to get away from. Number 2, there's a great adventure or an opportunity at hand. And then 3, there's a risk of loss because you generally have to give something up to get something great. And when I look, it's hard to see it when you're in the moment, but I've become better now at recognizing when I'm at an inflection point, and I've learned to sit in awareness and really be, cool. And play and go backwards a little bit and go forwards a little bit and try to time travel and then just, pull it all back into that moment of awareness and try to make the best decision possible. But like and I think that's a function of lots of bad decisions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
for sure,
that's
for sure.
so. I'm sorry.
It's
You're so
because
you're
the inflection points can be like bad decisions. Like they can be, but I like what you said there, because I was just about to say I don't really know. I can look back and see these points, these inflection points, but I don't know when they're happening. And now that you
right.
say it, it's like, oh, you can. It's like you're ahead of me there, where you can. It's like I'd like to be able to recognize when they're happening better. So there's definitely a deeper conversation there, um, but yeah, I consider this one of those inflection points, and it's funny because it sticks in your mind. Like I can feel the same feelings I was sitting there reading that Craigslist ad, and I just thought this seems like a good thing for me right now. So I interview with the guy. I go. It was so funny because like if you were traditional in any sense, you would have looked at this and been like, dude, you get out of here. What are you doing? Because like he interviewed me. He works at they worked at a car wash, and he interviewed me at the car wash, and he was like, it was winter time. It was freezing cold. I'm from California. Where I'm from is cold, but not nearly as cold as Utah. And he's in a jacket and gloves, and I'm like, okay. So I sit down with this guy. He's like, okay, so what we do is cars come in for the car wash. If they have a crack in their windshield that's the size of a dime or a quarter, we can save it from spreading. We can save them from having to replace their windshield by injecting resin, and we get paid by the insurance companies to do it because they don't want to have to pay to replace the whole windshield. So it's free to the customer. It's you get paid. We get paid $65, and I'll pay you a $20 commission for every time you fix a windshield. And you should be able to fix between 5 and 10 a day. And I'm like, cool. All right. That should do it. That'll like, help me survive. And so I get to work for this guy in the just the freezing cold weather. And it's just, we're out there, customers are getting their car washed coming through. We go up, wipe down their windshield after they went through. And if they saw one, say, hey, by the way, you have a chip in your windshield, let's go ahead and fix it. And I did. I started doing 5 to 10 a day, and I was making $100-$200 a day. And it was like, okay, cool. I at least can pay rent and pay, feed my kid, and I don't have to ask my parents for anything. And then my brother was my younger brother, Blake, was also, he was out here as well. And he was working for another company, and he saw what I was doing, and he's like, that seems kind of cool. Do they need somebody else? And so he came along and started working with us too. And then after about 2 months of doing this, we found out that the owner of that company was doing shady stuff. And he was taking insurance information and processing more claims illegally, and like behind the customer's back, and like using it to, like he would claim a replacement versus a repair and get $300 or $400 instead of $65, And I immediately was like, well, I can't. I was super bummed because I was like, man, this was a good opportunity, and this guy's ruining it. And I'm not going to work for him because I have integrity. And there's no amount of money that I'll sell that for. So I was pretty bummed, and I was like, man, okay, back to the drawing board. But then I was like, well, this guy's getting paid $65 per repair. I do 5 to 10 a day at a car wash. If I could do 2 or 3 a day and owned the company, I'd make $180-$200 a day myself. So I took what little money I had, like $300, and we bought, my brother and I, we each bought a windshield repair kit. You can buy them online. And we're like, well, how are we going to get customers? We don't have a car wash where people are coming through, because that's that guy's business. He had that set up. And so we started by going door to door. This was like, again, going back to, I'm not gonna go to my parents for money. So I'm gonna go door to door. So I would knock on doors, and I would say, hey, I'm a local windshield repair expert. Do you have any chips in your windshield? And it worked. Like, people would be like, oh, you know what? I do have a chip in my windshield. And I'd go into their garage and I'd fix it. And then I'd get paid by the insurance companies the $65. And I could do 4 to 8 of those in a day. And so 4 to 8 at $65 was, that's more money than I had ever made. It was great money,
Right.
And I had no overhead. I was going door to door. So I had no office space or anything. And so I did that all through the summer, and I made great money. I was able to support my family, and it was was good. It was just, the problem was it was door to door was not really scalable and also not really sustainable, in that winter comes and I don't want to knock through the winter. And it was like this, so as winter was approaching, this is another one of those moments. We went down to, my parents were still in California. We went down to California, and I remember it because it's like, I remember exactly the gas station this happened at. I remember the movie we were going to see, because it was Thanksgiving, and we were going to see a movie with my parents, and we stopped at a gas station and we saw somebody washing windshields as people were getting gas. And then I noticed that they had chip repair on their shirt. And I was like, I'll bet that they're offering chip repair to people as they're coming to get gas. So I immediately go back. We go back to California. I go to our nearest gas station. I go to the owner and I say, hey, I want to upgrade your customer experience by washing everybody's windshields as they get gas. And if they have a chip in the windshield, I'm going to offer to get a chip. So it'll be free for you. I'll pay you a little bit every time I get a chip repair. And then we can do it. So now people are coming in for gas. And I say, hey, thanks for coming in. It was Mike. He owned the Chevron. I said, thanks for coming into Mike's Chevron today. As a courtesy, we're washing everybody's windshields. And I would just wash their windshield for them. And then while I'm doing that, obviously looking for a chip in the windshield. And then if I had one, I go, oh, by the way, over there at our tent over there, we'd have a pop-up tent. I said, over there at the tent, you can pull over there and I can fix this little chip in your windshield so it doesn't ruin your windshield. And they'd go, how long does that take? About 15 minutes. How much does it cost? Well, it depends on if you have insurance or not. Who do you have? Geico. Oh, great. Geico does it for free. Pull over there. Give me 15 minutes. I'll take care of it. And you won't have to replace your windshield. And that was my key. That was my key to the, starting my successful journey as an entrepreneur. And that first Saturday, so we started on a Saturday at that gas station. I did 15 repairs. So I made $1,000, almost $1,000 in my first day at that gas station. Wow. So that was like, really cool. And so then we're like, well, what's the next obvious thing? Let's get another gas station. So we get another gas station. Next thing you know, we had like 4 gas stations. And then we're out there hustling. And this is important, like for anybody that's like on an entrepreneurial journey, like the ideas happen in the hustle. Like you have to be going, working, doing, and then the ideas are going to come and things are going to happen. But if you're trying to sit at home going, okay, what should I do next? What am I going to do next? You're never going to be inspired. It's never going to come. You have to be doing, and then things happen. So we're out there washing windshields. My brother washes this one guy's windshield, and he goes, what are you guys actually doing? And he's like, well, we do chip repair. And he goes, well, I'm the manager at the Nissan dealership up here, and we have a lot of cars coming in for service every day for oil changes and whatnot. Why don't you have a guy up there that does it there? And so we're like, oh, cool. Yeah, let's try that. And because it's like indoors, we're not outside in the wintertime. And so we get into the Nissan dealership and we do like 5 to 10 repairs a day out of that spot. And then he goes, I also manage the Honda dealership. And there's a lesson in that process too, because we were in the Nissan dealership, we're doing really well. And he had said, hey, let's get you into the Honda dealership. And he kept saying that. And then he would go, I got to talk to the guy. And then it never would happen. And one day, I'm a big believer in gratitude, in obviously expressing gratitude with people you encounter and then also with God. But I think the principle is the same at all levels. It opens the doors, both through what God has to offer and what, people have to offer. And so one day I just said, I'm going to just go up to him. I'm just going to tell him how grateful I am. And it was like, I wasn't going to pitch anything. I was just like, I feel like I haven't really been grateful. I just keep asking him to get me into that Honda dealership. I just need to go up and say thank you for what he's already done for me, So I go in his office. I just said, hey, I just want to let you know, like, we're making great money here. And it's been such a good thing for us. I just wanted to say thank you. And that was it. And he literally pauses and he goes, yeah, you're welcome, man. This has been really cool. Let's call the Honda guy right now. Let's get you in there. And it was like one of those immediate, like, obviously gratitude. Sometimes it's not that immediate, but this was one of those moments where it was like, dang, it works. So he goes,
when you do the right thing, sometimes the right result happens immediately.
yeah, immediately, and then sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, and you can look back, and it's like it's okay if it doesn't. You can know that the principle's at play and it's working as long as it's sincere.
Right.
And so he calls the Honda dealership. And the next day, we were in the Honda dealership, and then from there we expanded into like 9 different different dealerships. That was the most sustainable of the models. The gas stations were great, but the weather again was a big problem. It was hard to find guys that were willing to do that hustle. But at the car wash or at the dealerships, we were able to find people that were more willing to work at the dealerships because it was indoors, more sustainable, more consistent. And so we got into 9 locations and we were doing really well. And of course, as an entrepreneur, it was like, okay, what's the next? Like, I want to keep growing. Do I keep growing this business, or what do I really want to do? And I've always loved digital marketing. I've loved, I dabbled in like affiliate marketing, and I understand how to build a website and all these different things. And courses were just starting to become a thing online, like online courses back. This was 2014, and ClickFunnels was just getting going, and I knew about Russell Brunson and what he does. And so I was like, I wonder if I started a windshield repair, like how to start your own windshield repair business. And I talked to a friend of mine who's very, very wealthy. And he's like, can people reasonably make $50,000, $60,000 a year doing this? And I said, yes. And then he said, then you have a major opportunity in front of you. If they can reasonably do it, they can learn it quickly, and you can teach them how to do it, then you have a really big opportunity, because that's where big money's made, is in helping people discover new opportunities. That was his thing. And so I sat down at my little, I had a Mac Mini, and I just did PowerPoint presentations, and I created videos. They were not great. They were just screen recordings of me talking. Okay, here's how you approach a gas station. Here's how you approach a dealership. Here's how you ask somebody for their insurance. Here's how all the little steps to doing the repair, and then how to actually do the repairs. And I put together a little course, and I hosted the videos in a membership course thing. And I started doing different ways to get leads. I would post in, there's a local newspaper website here that has classified ads. I posted in there. I posted on Facebook. There used to be a magazine that would go around that you could get at the store called Small Business Opportunities. And it had like I bought an ad in that. I bought an ad on Franchise Gator, where they, sell business opportunities, and you're a franchise guy, so and I started getting leads coming in, and I started closing deals, and I got to where I remember having a $30,000 month and just being like, holy cow, dude, I'm like crushing it. And
what did the course sell for?
I had 3 packages. So I had I called it platinum. What did I call it? Starter something in platinum, starter freedom in platinum. Maybe platinum was $3,000. I had deals with the people that sold the kits, the windshield repair kits. Mm-hmm. I called them and said, hey, can you put my logos on your kits and I'll sell them for you? And they agreed to do it. And so I had two manufacturers. One of them had like a high-end premium, really nice kit. The other one was cheaper, and I actually preferred that. I actually liked that kit more. It was fine. It did the work. It was fine. But people liked this bright and shiny kit because it had like bells and whistles and stuff. And then I would say, okay, for $3,000, you get the kit and you get our training course, and then you get access to me anytime you want to call or text me. I'll answer any questions you have. That's $3,000. For $1,695, so $1,695, you get the smaller kit. That gets the kit, the online training, and then access to me for 6 months. And then we have a $993. That's the kit and the training, no personal coaching. You can use the kit and the training, but I'm not going to get on the phone with you.
Was the ribeye in the middle? I mean, was that the one that most people? Most people
We
bought.
did. That was probably 80 to 90% of our sales. The $3,000 kit made that one look more reasonable. If we start there, then the other one,
That's
how it
right.
is,
Yep.
the psychology and everything. But then there's always those guys that every now and then are just go, nope, I gotta have the best, I gotta have the thing, I gotta do it, and they get it, and it was fine, and we provided a good service for them as well. And those were the guys that cried the least, that like needed the least attention, were the ones that spent the most money. But I sold about 1,000 kits and helped people all around the country start businesses. A lot of them were successful. A lot of them weren't. You know how it is. Some people get excited about something and then give up too quick. But we had a lot of really great testimonials come through. A lot of people saying, "Hey, you changed my life. I'm making $500 a day. I'm making $300 a day." All these different things, and it was really cool to see that, because like for me as an entrepreneur, that was the ultimate entrepreneur like thing, was helping other entrepreneurs find opportunity and make money. You totally you can relate to this. Totally.
That's right.
And so now the way that I discovered how to sell it was I was selling through these various channels, and then I set up a Facebook ad, a lead form, which was just if you're familiar with Facebook ads, they have a pre-built funnel that has an ad and then a form that already has their information filled out in it, and then they click submit.
Right.
And then that data is sent to you as the advertiser. And so I would get these leads. I was spending about $10 a day, and I was getting leads for about $1. So these leads would come through of people that were interested in starting a windshield repair business. And then I would call them, or I would text them and have a conversation with them. And if they were interested, I would send them a webinar that I had that we were doing. So I'd send them a link to do the webinar. And I found that if I texted them, they responded. If I called them, they wouldn't answer the phone. And so I got to the point where I was just texting the leads. Every time they came in, I would text them. And then I realized I could automate that. And so I pieced together some systems, and every time a lead would come in, I would send a text message, and I would say, "Hey, join us for our webinar." Then I understood that, hey, my webinar, I've recorded it. I don't need to have them wait. Why don't I just send them the recording right away? And if they're interested, we go. So then I automated now I'm not sitting on a webinar every couple of days.
Right.
I just send the pre-recorded one. And so the lead would come in. I'd send them a text with a link to the webinar. Say, hey, watch this webinar. If you're interested, book a call with us. So they'd watch the 45-minute webinar, and at the end of the webinar, I'd say, hey, if you're interested, click this link, book a call. And they would schedule an appointment with us. And we were getting like 10 appointments a day, and we were selling, me and my brother were selling windshield repair kits every day. And we did like $2 million through that process.
That's incredible.
And yeah. And that's when it was like, okay, cool. Text messaging is a really great way to convert leads. And so I had the idea, and I had a friend who owned a software that did text messaging, and we used it to piece together this funnel. And I was like, man, I want to take this whole process and put it all into one software. And so that's when the CHIRP idea was born. And we started programming CHIRP in 2018. And then by early 2019, we had a minimum viable product. We had the basic framework for texting and for getting leads from Facebook into the system. And then we just kept adding features. And for about 4 years, we struggled to find our niche. A lot of people were using it. We had people from real estate agents using it. Some restaurants were using it, all these different companies, but we didn't have
any fitness.
We did have some fitness. We had some CrossFit gyms using it, actually. Yeah.
We cobbled together. I built a fitness brand. We cobbled together our own cocktail of technologies to do that, because we have high attrition every month, and we get leads, and you got to be texting them with a picture saying, hey, I'll be here at noon. Come 15 minutes early for your orientation, and then the reminders have to go out and all of that, right? So
totally
super high touch, and there's technologies that that we were able to put together to do that back in the 2018, 2019 timeframe in 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We may have crossed paths. We had some CrossFit gyms, and then we even had like food trucks using it. I remember a pizza guy used it. He sold a lot of pizza through it. He would send out text to his base and say, "Hey, our pizza food truck is going to be on this corner at this time," and then people would show up. So it wasn't, but the problem is we didn't have a cohesive message. We didn't have like we were everything for everybody, and it just didn't resonate very well, because like a dentist would come along and he'd go, "Well, how do I use it?" And I go, "Well, this real estate agent over here is doing it like this." And he go, "I don't care what the real estate agent's doing. Like, are there other dentists using it?" And so we kind of had this, like, I don't know, just like, it it wasn't a clear, cohesive brand at that point. And we were struggling somewhere in the $20,000 to $30,000 a month range. We'd kind of just live in that range of recurring revenue. People would come on, people would cancel, and we just kind of lived in that cycle. And it wasn't until some home service guys came along and recommended integrations into House Call Pro and Service Titan.
Right.
And because they're using it, and they're like, "Oh man, it would be so cool if it could do this. It would be so cool if it could do this." And we're like, "Oh, that is interesting. Oh, let's check that out." And we started building these integrations, right? And next thing you know, we have this really robust integration into House Call Pro. We also had it with Service Titan, but House Call Pro was like primed. Like we just started getting a bunch of inquiries. People like, "We needed to do this, and then next thing you know, I'm sitting in my house, because this is during COVID. I'm sitting in my house, and I would just go into these Facebook groups, and people would ask questions in the Facebook groups, and I would answer them with like a solution and say, "Oh, you can do it like this. Oh, you can do it like this." And then that generated demos for us. And I filled up my calendar for about a year. I would fill up my calendar just through Facebook, just commenting and engaging people on social media. And I got CHIRP up to like $100,000 a month in recurring revenue. And I realized like home services was where we needed to live. And like, that's where we needed to just focus 100% of our effort. And so we kind of closed the doors to everybody else. We didn't close the doors. If people came along, we'd still sign them up. But it was like, all of our energy, all of our marketing, all of our messaging is going to be directed towards home services.
Right.
And so now I'm at another inflection point. I'm like, dang, okay, I've got to figure out how to scale this business. I'm at $100,000 a month. I want to get to $1 million a month, right? And I couldn't do it on my own. I can't just sit and sell this forever. I like, there's a point where the owner has to step away from sales, right? And
right.
And so I read that book, Who Not How. If you've ever read that book, I highly recommend it.
Dan Sullivan. Yeah, he's coming on. He's coming on the podcast either this month or next month.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, great guy. Read that book, and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to call 100 people. I'm going to go on LinkedIn, and I'm going to find 100 people who claim to be good salespeople for software companies in their bio, And I'm gonna make a list of 100 people, and I'm gonna call through, and I'm gonna find a guy that can replace me and start selling for me. So I sit down. This is another like clear inflection point. I sit down, I pull up LinkedIn, and I hadn't been on LinkedIn in about 2 years. There was a time when we were doing CHIRP where I was like, oh, maybe LinkedIn's a good place to find people, and I added a bunch of people, and I kind of played that game where you add a bunch and try to find leads that way. And I would reach out, and I hadn't been on in 2 years. So I pull up LinkedIn, and I had all these messages in my folder from people I had reached out to 2 years ago. But just like hadn't followed up with them or looked at them. And there's one guy, the very first person I see in my messages, I click on it, and it says, quota crusher, unicorn builder, the best SaaS salesman you've ever seen. SaaS, for anybody who doesn't know, is software as a service.
That's a claim. You said, I'm looking for somebody who claims it, and he's claiming it.
I'm like, cool, unicorn builder. That's what I want, a unicorn builder. And if for anybody that's not familiar with that term in software, unicorn, if you get to $1 billion valuation, you're a unicorn, right? And so I'm like, all right, this guy's talking some trash. Let's see. And so I call him up, and it just so happens to be Justin Judd. And so if anybody knows, Justin Judd is with CHIRP. He's just an absolute killer. He is the most relentless competitor I've ever met, and it just so happened out of my 100 people I was going to call, he was the very first person that I called. And so I call him up, and I'm like, hey, I own this software company. I don't really know what I'm doing with recruiting sales guys. So I'm just kind of just getting to know some people and see if anybody's interested in having a conversation. And he's like, yeah, I actually, what's funny is I recently left my company that I worked with, and I'm actually looking for another startup to work with. And I was like, dang, this might be a good fit. So he comes in, we sit down, and I was like, this guy seems like a good fit. Let's give this a shot, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it for, I'll do it for cheap for a few months, and if it takes off, then we'll work out a commission structure and just figure out what makes sense. And so he comes in, and our first day I go, I don't really know what to do as far as how you want to approach this. I've been doing it on Facebook, however you think. And I said, my idea has been to create a partnership program. I don't really know how that's going to look, but I want to just start reaching out to people in the space and just start seeing what we can do. I didn't know what a best practice or coaching group was. I didn't know who Tommy Mello was. I didn't know who Nextstar was. I didn't know anything at this point. And so we sat down and we just started researching, and we started putting on the board, on a whiteboard, the people we thought we should connect with. We put 35 people, companies, coaching groups, marketing groups, different people that we saw, saying stuff on Facebook, and we just put 35 people on that board. And every day we'd come in and go, okay, where are we at with this guy? Where are we at with this guy? Where are we at with this guy? And we'd go through that list of 35 people. We didn't know it at the time, but that was a full-blown vision board that we were manifesting into our lives. If you guys, I'm a big believer in that stuff. I think it's all related to how God works and all this stuff, but this effort and this energy, putting it out into the universe. And we got, the crazy thing is we got all 35 of those partners. And Tommy Mello was one of them. He's an investor now in the company. Nextstar, Service World, just a bunch of marketing agencies, Rhino. There's, anyways, I could go through Rilla's, there's all these different companies and influencers that we matched with. And now we took it from, 100,000 where I was. So I went from 20,000 a month to 100,000 on my own. And then with me and Justin, we've taken it to now 650, 700,000 a month. And our goal is to get to 15 million in annual recurring revenue before we make some sort of, offer, whether it's to sell part of it or do some sort of deal at that point. But,
right.
But that's been the, that's the straight line story, right? It's more like this, but it's, that's where we're at today. And now we're we just made a strategic hire yesterday, and things are cranking along. So,
well, incredible story. Thank you for sharing it. And we're catching it right here, on the way up. So let's talk about the software. Let's talk about CHIRP. And I mean, at the core of it, it's, if you think about marketing, and you've kind of got this fundamental root of marketing, right? That's basically, a small business, you're going to stand up websites. You're going to do your best to optimize for SEO. You're going to, and that's going to be on, for all search, and, and then, which, and by the way, chat, Gemini, things like that are, moving up. There's other considerations now to where people are going to be searching. And then of course, then you do some paid. And you start doing some paid. You either hire an agency that's going to run paid traffic for you, and you've kind of got this. All right, my digital front door is open, and people can come in and browse my wares. And if they're so inclined, they can fill out a form,
Yep.
right? Or they can pick up the telephone and call, or, maybe engage with a chat on the website. But like, that's not good enough, right? Because at the end of the day, if you call, I mean, we know this in franchise deals, like you're 9 times more likely to get a deal with somebody if you talk to them in the first 30 minutes. I mean, if somebody goes to a third party lead source and like an Angie's or somebody, and a lead comes in, I mean, if you can auto dial or auto text those people back first, you're much more likely to get the appointment. So, speed to lead is what matters. So now, and then you've got this concept of, I mean, the second thing is this concept of kind of elevated conversion, which sits on top of this stack. And I understand, like, in reality, it's a funnel and it's all integrated, because they might come to the website and then they go to the website, they fill out a form, they don't buy right away, or you can't get them back. So now they've got to go into some conversion tactic, right, where you're texting them or calling them or voicemailing them or whatever. And then they're going into some other, Lazarus campaign where you might call them twice today, once tomorrow. That goes on for 7 or 9 days. And then at some point, 30 days later, you send them an email that say, "Are you dead?" And something like that. And so all of this is going on, but then, and that's kind of where you live, and that conversion strategy that sits on top of the foundation. And then almost above that, there's this other, once you get the conversion set up, there's campaigning that you can do on top of that, right? So you can say, well, now based on our data, we understand that here's another customer set that maybe we weren't paying attention to, or we didn't, like you said, you got to be in it to see it. So now that you're in it and you've got flow, it's like, well, what if we could get more customers out of by attacking this type of referral partner or this type of direct customer, or and then you get segmentation and customization, which CHIRP allows you to do. So you saw this opportunity inside of this conversion space. So, like, can you give us some examples of some of the things that CHIRP does exceptionally well, and places where, if implemented properly and if managed properly, that it really makes a difference in somebody's business?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing you said, it speed to lead is a huge problem. We put especially new business owners, young business owners, they put the surface level is marketing, right? Oh, I need leads. 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 They're not, that's like the biggest problem to solve. What they're not realizing is that leads are just the very beginning of the process. And if we don't convert those leads into jobs, we don't make money. And if we don't convert them at a high enough level, we're going to get squashed in marketing, because somebody else that does can spend more money to get a lead, right? Gary Vaynerchuk said it. He said, "He who can spend the most on marketing wins." Or he who can spend the most to get a deal wins, right? Because now I can go to Google and say, "Oh, you're willing to pay $2 because you're only converting 1 out of 10 or whatever."
That's right.
I can pay $3 because I can convert 1 out of 5. So I'm going to beat you. And so you have to go, all right, I need to convert at the highest level possible so that I can pay the most money for marketing. And now I can be the best. And so speed to lead is first. That's where the person has raised their hand. They've said, "I'm interested in your product or service. I've submitted my information. I have a minute to contact that lead if I want the highest conversion rate." I was very frustrated before when we were kind of living in the space of generating leads and helping people generate leads, because we generate leads and they'd say, "Oh, these leads suck." And then I'd look and go, "Well, you took 30 minutes to call them, or you called them the next day or whatever. The leads don't suck. You suck." And so people aren't really realizing how important that first minute is. It's the very, I mean, you think about TikTok and Facebook Reels and how short our attention spans are now as human beings. We are ruined. Like, especially post-COVID, our attention spans are terrible. And so if somebody fills out a lead and then you don't contact them, you contact them 10 minutes later, they might have already forgotten that they even filled out the form. It's like, you're way too late, right? And so we find that if we can contact within that first minute, we're gonna capture that information, we're gonna send a text message, and we're gonna start a conversation with that lead within 30 seconds to a minute. That's gonna be the first step to converting. And we do that exceptionally well because we are connected with all different types of lead sources. And like you said, Angie Leads, Thumbtack, forms on your website, anywhere that somebody could submit their information, we can capture that data and then immediately send a text message. And we'll get text back all the time. Wow, that was quick. Thanks for responding. Yeah. And then they have the conversation and close the deal. So speed to lead, crucial, super important, but only the very beginning of this process. That's going to help us convert the leads that are ready to convert now. And then there's going to be a huge portion of those leads that are going to go into a bucket that say, I'm not ready to convert just yet. And those ones need nurturing. We've heard it a million times. The fortune is in the follow-up. You're going to close leads on the front, and that's great. But again, we want to get the most out of our marketing and get the most money. So we also need to convert these guys over here so that we can spend more money on marketing. And so we have to follow up. And the problem with manual follow-up is you're never going to get somebody willing to do it consistently. It's not cost effective because the actual amount of time it would take to nurture and follow up with leads doesn't give you a return that would make up for the cost of actually doing that.
Yeah, way too expensive.
Way too expensive. And then sales guys just hate it. They just hate following up. And so I've always kind of like, I've kind of like, instead of trying to force the sales guys, you know how it is. Owners and sales guys fight all the time because they're like, you're not converting at a high enough level. And the sales guys are like, you're not giving me good enough leads. And it's this constant battle, right?
Yeah.
And so the owners are always going, follow up, and it's like, well, why don't we just, instead of forcing something that's totally unnatural, let's just take it off their plate and automate it and just make it happen in the background. And now when somebody does, so let's say the lead comes in, they don't convert. 15 minutes, 4 or 5 days later, over a process of a few follow-ups, the guy responds, oh, you know what? Yeah, sorry, I've been busy. Yes, I'm ready to go. That's like a brand new, fresh lead that sales guy can now jump on and close a deal. It's every bit as good as the hot leads up front. And so now you're producing more opportunities for your sales guys. They're happier. They're more, they're doing the thing they love doing, which is closing deals. You're happier because you're making more money on your marketing. And automation's making this all happen in the background by just consistently following up with those leads. And you can be as aggressive or non-aggressive as you want to be. I tell the joke because early on, there was one HVAC guy. He said, my policy in my business is I either reach them or I get a restraining order. Those are the two outcomes. Those are the two outcomes that we're going to have. And so I tell people, you can be that aggressive or back it off from there, right? I recommend to back it off a little from there.
A little bit.
And then I like what you said, the Lazarus campaign, where, okay, let's say over the 14 days they don't convert. Well, we still have their data. We still have their information. They haven't responded. They haven't opted out. It's next to free to keep following up. There's a small cost in sending text messages, but it's basically zero. And so by the time, there's been times where a text message 6 months later goes out. It says, hey, you reached out to us 6 months ago about getting your system replaced or whatever the thing was. Were you able to get that project finished? And they go, oh, you know what? I didn't actually do it. It's time. It's a better time now or whatever. And there's the occasional lead that'll bubble back up. Yeah. It's another free lead, that would have just disappeared into the system. You never would have seen him again. You never would have talked to him again. But because that text message, little lifeline went out to him, they responded and there you go. And so that front end conversion, that happens at the estimate and all these different things. And the reason we excel and are good at this is, again, because we trigger these to happen at the right times on the right people. So that's where I live a lot. A lot of our effort is on the front end, converting leads, abandoned calls, making sure if an abandoned call happens that they're getting followed up with. Every way that every little leaky hole in your business, we're trying to find that and plug it up. And then from there, we try to turn them into raving fans, get more reviews by following up consistently to get reviews. A lot of people have a review system that'll send out a text, hey, leave us a review, but they don't follow up beyond that.
Just one.
One. Yeah. We'll send out multiple to try to get, because people want to leave reviews and they just don't have time and it's a pain. And you need to nurture them a little bit to get them to leave a review.
Yeah.
And then post job nurturing, referral requests, all these different things that can happen after to maintain a relationship, filter change reminders, and just, birthdays and different things throughout the year to keep them engaged and keep you top of mind so that when it's time again to do service, they don't go somewhere else.
Yeah. Do you know, you'd mentioned Who Not How, Dan Sullivan. I don't know if you run in that strategic coach circle or not, or if you go, have you ever heard of a marketer named Dean Jackson?
I've heard of Dean Jackson. I don't know anything about him, but I know that name.
Yeah. Brilliant guy, brilliant marketer. I was very fortunate to get to meet him last year. I actually retained him to do a project, and to really build a pilot for a play. And he talks in his marketing, the way he teaches it, there's a before unit, a during unit, and an after unit. Mm-hmm. And there's activities you do before, there's activities you do during, and there's things you do after. And what you just walked through fit perfectly, dovetailed into his before, during, and after unit. Raving fans and referrals and all of that in the after unit, and then what you're doing to make sure that the people are happy with the fulfillment, and of course all the nurturing on the front end. But and we hired him to do a play, and I really liked it. And it was a way to, without, giving away all of his genius that you got to pay him for, but, a way to uncover customers that might not be ready today, but sometime within 100 days and 100 weeks are going to be ready they raise their hand, and you can do it through a high value, low, zero cost offer. To give them some information that would give you an indication before anyone else in the market would know that these people are interested in your product or your service. And then now the trick is you have to have a system during that 100 days to 100 weeks to keep engaged with them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it has to be conversational, and it has to be, so he uses 9-word emails and 9-word texts, because you don't write some big flowery thing with bold letters and bold, all of this, and we're the greatest company on the planet. It's like, hey, Ryan, are you still interested in having a fence repaired or installed? Whatever it is. And It looks like somebody just picked up and followed up with you, right? But I mean, it's automated, and but so as I think about this, and my question to you is, if I'm an operator, a single business operator, I don't have an IT staff, maybe I outsource my marketing to a great company like Rhino or somebody like that. Like, what's the implementation like? Because I know when I talked to Tommy, and I think I was speaking to maybe Tommy and you at the same time, but it was like when he saw it, he's like, okay, well, I have 42 different things that I want to do with this technology. Right. And I'm going in this weekend, and I'm going to make 42 videos, and I'm going to make this, that, and the other thing. You have out of the box a basic set of campaigns that people can start using immediately, and then customize as they see necessary. True?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, over 1,000 companies using CHIRP. And so we've seen lots of different campaigns and lots of different strategies and lots of different ways to use it. And we have pre-built campaigns. And I got the idea from Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels. If you know anything about ClickFunnels, it's a funnel building software for marketing. And what he did was pretty smart. Was he said, if you build a funnel, there's a code here, and you can give that to somebody else if they want to duplicate that funnel in their own ClickFunnels account. And you could basically sell your funnels to other people and give them that code. And so early on when we developed CHIRP, I said, let's develop a code for campaigns, and then we can hand these campaign codes to people, and they can just populate them into their account. And it's become now where people just share them. We don't really sell them. We don't have them for sale, but they're just there and available. We have all these pre-built ones ready to go. And so when you onboard with us, we kind of go through, what do you want to have implemented? Here are these pre-built campaigns. We can walk through and change wording in the text messages or whatever you want to say. We can have AI implement. We can have AI respond in the conversations if you want, or have it just be single one-off text messages. And then these are pre-built, ready to go. And then as your mind starts to just see, like you said, you got to be in the game, you got to be in there doing it, but you start to come up with more ways to use it. there's lots of cool ways that have popped up that I didn't think of that our customers think of. Like we had one where she said, I want to send out a text message whenever somebody books an appointment with us to get an estimate. I want to send out the thank you for booking text, and then I want to send a second text message a couple minutes later that says, by the way, we understand that this could be financially burdensome. I don't know her exact wording, but
right.
If you want to take a look at some of our promotions, we have some great financing options here, and then a link to their financing. They use GoodLeap, and there's other, obviously other ones out there. And so you could click, apply, get approved, and now you have approved customers before you even get to the house. And it's like, that's like a slam dunk easy deal because the person already has their financing lined up and everything.
Yeah,
and so that was
a bit of a buying signal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a good campaign that one of our customers came up with that now we make available and say, hey, do you want to use this one? And this, and so we have these all pre-built. We help you implement them. We help you trigger them at the right points. And then it's just your job to close deals as those leads are being nurtured. So
yeah. How what would be a reason that an implementation didn't go as well as it could have?
There's some times where people will come in and they'll go, I know that's how everybody else is doing it, but I want to do it this way, and they'll come up with some crazy way to do something.
Genius
and
attack.
Yeah. And so we're like, okay, we'll try to make that work, and then it doesn't work sometimes, or sometimes they'll have a system that and what we do find is everybody, it's so crazy. Software takes on a life of its own. Nobody uses Service Titan the same way that another company uses it. Everybody uses it has their own processes and their own ways of doing things. And so there are some times where we go, well, there's no really way that we can trigger it the way that you're envisioning it to happen because of limitations from the way you're doing things in Service Titan. So sometimes certainly there are things. And then, of course, if you don't use a system that we're integrated with, there's fewer automation opportunities, but there's still the ability to do it, to trigger these things manually. It takes some extra work, but it's still worth the extra work to do. So there could be a number of reasons that it wouldn't go as expected. But generally, and that's why I employ, we have a customer success team, and their job is to become funnel building masters. I call these funnels campaigns. So they can problem solve and look and go, you know what? We can't do that organically with Service Titan. However, if we create a Zap with Zapier to do this and send it over here and then do this, we can do it. And they'll come up with creative strategic solutions on how you can get your vision accomplished. We very rarely say, no, we can't do that. There's sometimes we have to figure out some kind of duct tape way of doing it, but usually we can figure it out.
Yeah. I've noticed that with, AI is having an impact in all kinds of businesses, software in particular, and you're starting to see some feature creep. People were a specific tool, and now with AI, they're kind of expanding, and people have to make a choice. Business builders like you have to make a choice. Do you expand into voice? Do you expand into this? Do you expand into that? Mm-hmm. Or do you kind of stay in your lane and collaborate with other people that are staying in their lanes? What do you see as the evolution for CHIRP going forward? You may not want to talk about some strategic ideas that you have or some paths that you're going down, but are you going to be using AI to make your, the ability to just interpret customer communications and read them, right? It has given rise to a whole new industry of companies building referral automation software because referrals was really hard. But for us as a franchise platform with multiple brands, how do we navigate referrals from one to another without, again, having that person talk to somebody and say, what are you looking for? And this, that, and the other thing. But now you can read voicemails. You can even have AI reading calls with our operators and pulling out the opportunity to move those people to another campaign because they've maybe indicated an interest in something else that we do. So now it's like it can get now that anything's possible, everything's possible. So
totally.
Yeah. So how are you thinking about CHIRP, and or is it going to be an expanded platform and maybe some voice capabilities? Or are you gonna go deeper into what your existing?
Yeah, voice capabilities are definitely happening. They're becoming commoditized, and so it's like we just have to have it in there. But it's not going to be it's not going to be what we basically market the system as. But it's kind of, people are expecting it to be as part of this. But
what exactly does that? What exactly does that mean for the listeners here? Voice.
Yeah. So somebody calls in and calls. Let's say you send a text message that says, "Hey Jeff, thanks for requesting information. I'd love to get you on the call. Let's book a time." And they call the number. They go, "No, I want to talk to you in person."
Okay.
Now an AI voice can answer and say, "Hey, thanks for calling. What are you hoping to accomplish, or what do you need?" And they'll say, "Oh, we want to, my system broke and I need a guy to come look at it." "Oh, okay, great. Let's look at our schedule and see what would work." And it'll actually follow through and book them to your calendar. So the whole process of getting them booked is done via text and voice, all along the way, with no actual human interaction. Right. I have my reservations on some things. I believe there's going to be a pushback at some point where people are going to start to go, if I don't talk to an actual human, I don't want to talk to you. And then, I think that's a ways off. I think people are going to really like AI for a long time, and I think there's going to be a cycle. But for now, we are leaning into it 100%, and ideally, pretty soon, hopefully this year, we will have it to be where you're no longer creating campaigns. You're just training the agent and saying, "Okay, you're a follow-up agent. Your job is to follow up." And so you don't have to guess. You have to say, follow up day 1, follow up day 3, follow up day 5. The AI agent will just go, "Cool, start." You just trigger it and say, "Start following up." And now it's gonna sense when to follow up and how often it should, based on the conversation. And so it'll be more like a human following up based on what's going on with that particular lead. So it'll be more customized to that person rather than just the same campaign for everybody.
Well, yeah, it's the concept of like agentic AI, right? So like right now, there's a bunch of disparate tools that everybody's learning to use. Tools to create content, tools to create campaigns, funnels, tools to code. Yeah, but what's coming is an agent that sits over the top of all of those technologies that you then just speak a powerful future into, and it figures out how to build it for you. And even to the point where, hey, build me this type of business. I want to build a painting business. I want to build it in the city. I'd like you to create me websites. I'd like you to build me an ad campaign. I'd like you to file for my trademark. I'd like you to register me with the Secretary of State. I'd like you to set up my tax ID number. I'd like you to recommend an accountant to me. And you just like it. I mean,
and then there's a point, Jeff, where there's a big button that just says "Make me rich," and you push the button.
You think it's going to work? I don't know. That's why I'm that's why I'm glad I'm in property services. Like ultimately somebody's got to go out and do it.
Yep.
But who knows? Maybe we'll be sending out robots before too long to do all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Who knows where it goes? Yeah. And I like what you said. It's like you do all these tasks, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to put a layer above that, do something that does all these tasks for me. And where does that end? Right. Whereas like, it's a pretty crazy path. Yeah.
Yeah. If you read Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Nearer, then he has an idea about where it lands. I was listening to Musk talking to I forget which podcast it was on, but yeah, he's like, hey, I think it's going to be 80% probability that it's going to be good, and it's going to be. He says it's going to go one of two ways. He goes, but I think 80% of probability it's going to improve life. It's going to make everything better. We're gonna make it our a tool for us to use, and we're going to be able to improve quality of life and get people doing higher value things instead of tasks and elevate everything. He goes, but then there's a 20% chance that it goes really bad.
And it's probably worse than we could ever imagine.
Yeah, he said, but it's not. It won't be in the middle. He says.
Yeah. He's interesting.
He seems relatively thoughtful.
Yeah. The rocket ship builder.
Yeah, you think? I'm excited that you were on today, and looking forward to building a deeper relationship with your company and having you help us, continue to get better at acquiring customers to all of our brands and all of that. We didn't get a chance to talk about stand-up comedy.
Probably for the better.
Really?
No, it's fine. Yeah, what questions do you have?
You were a dabbler? You dabbled a little bit?
I was pretty serious for a little while. This was in my early 20s. When I was pretending to go to school, I overheard a guy saying, "Oh, I go to this stand-up comedy workshop," and I was like, "Oh, I got to do that." So I went to the Improv and I did this workshop, which was run by a guy named Gary Cann, and him and I became really good friends, even though he's a total scammer, because the idea of teaching somebody to do stand-up comedy is a scam, and but I happened to just be good enough that I could get some laughs and I was able to do about 10 to 15 minutes. And so I opened for some people. I did some old school comedians, guys from like In Living Color and stuff. I did stuff with them. And they're like Pauly Shore. I hung out with him, Daniel Tosh, some of these early guys. And I did, I would open and I would do like 10 to 15 minutes. I did that for a few years. I didn't ever get paid. It's a hustle where you work for 5-10 years before you even start to get paid. But there was a point where I kind of had to make a decision that I always wanted a family. I'm like I said, I'm a religious guy. And so it was a very dark world, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. And I've never drank alcohol. I've never even tasted it. And so I'd be around a lot of this stuff, and it just felt really damaging to my soul. And I was a clean comic. I don't swear. I don't do any of that. But in order to be successful, you basically just have to perform everywhere, and you have to be busy all the time and just putting yourself out there. And that meant being around really filthy stuff a lot. And for some people that's fine. For me, it just didn't feel like the life I wanted to live. And so I pulled back and I do charity auctions now. So I can auctioneer. I do the auctioneer chant. And so I do charity auctions and I get to speak at a lot of these events, and I get to get that creative side out that way. But it's with more purpose than stand-up comedy. So
what did it inform? What did it teach you about failure, and how did it inform your entrepreneurial journey in terms of fear?
It's the scariest. They say I don't, for whatever reason, I wasn't born with that fear of going on stage. Like I'm more comfortable on the stage than in the audience. But when you can tell a joke and have it flop, because I bombed a lot, everybody that did it has bombed, and when you can get to the point where it doesn't really bother you, that's like a big deal. I never got to the point where it's totally bulletproof, but definitely doing that, everything I do now kind of feels, it's like I can get on a podcast with you or with it, whoever, and it's just like, what are you going to do that's going to be worse than bombing, in front of 100 people? So, it gives you kind of this thick skin, this kind of bulletproof feeling. And then that's really good for entrepreneurship, because jokes are developed. What people see are really well-developed jokes. Like if they watch a Netflix special, they don't realize that joke probably took 30 or 40 iterations to get the timing right, getting people to, and so if people give up on if you give up on your jokes too soon, you're never going to develop them to a point where they're Netflix ready, right? And it's the same for entrepreneurship. Like if I had given up on CHIRP at that early stage where we didn't know where to go, that first 4 years of just like, man, it was just, we were trying material, we were
Yeah.
trying new jokes, and eventually one joke hit and it was like, all right, I'm going to tell that joke 100 times at different audiences until, I'm going to keep telling it until I stop making money with it and move on to the next. So it's a development process that I learned through that kind of gave me that foundation.
How much material you have right now?
Right now, I have zero. Don't ask.
You couldn't do. I mean, if you had to do a tight 10 for charity,
could you do 10 for charity? I couldn't do a tight 10. I couldn't do it. I can always get a good laugh. I can open up and get a good laugh, but it's always organic. I don't have written jokes now. I'll go up and based on like what other speakers have said. If you saw me at Rilla, I made a joke with Sebastian about his mother-in-law being there and got a laugh. And like, so all my stuff's now just organic and just fun, but I don't have written jokes that would be, I did jokes because, I'm Mormon. So I told jokes about being Mormon, and those always got good laughs. I'd say stuff like, let's get the stereotypes out of the room. I don't have 3 moms and 60 brothers and sisters. I have 1 mom and 60 brothers and sisters. Stupid stuff like that. But yeah, that's a different life. So,
well, I mean, so when something strikes you, you don't like talk it, and you don't have a little secret file where it's like, oh, that would actually be a good bit, and you just put it in there and sock it away.
Generally, no. Now I like everything I do now is just is going to be based on the situation, the room as it is. So like I spoke at Tommy's event. I did it. I was at Tommy's house and I was making fun of him for being super rich. And I was like making fun of him for like, he's becoming like overly like dependent on his like butlers and stuff. And I was making fun of him. And I did do that joke. Cause it was like, I'd be like, get me my DeLorean, put on a pornographic film for me, that I was getting him to laugh. So I was like, oh, I'll do that at the show. And I did it. I got some laughs. So,
nice.
So yeah, but yeah, I don't develop material like I used to, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't pay, right? I mean, we got enough things to think about.
That's the thing. With my level of capability, my skill, I probably could have got a job on like a cruise ship or something. I probably could have made it to where I was at least making money and like supporting my family, but it would have been like 10, 15 years of struggle and, whatever. Now it's like, I make a lot more money. I get the fulfillment and I get to do it. I get to have fun, but there's no money in it unless you're like top 1%.
Well, awesome. Well, this has been great having you on. Do you have time for a curveball and a fastball?
I do. Absolutely.
All right. Curveball. Gun to your head. Oh, here we go. Gun to your head. If you had to start a business in the next 30 days that you're not currently in, what would you do?
Not currently in, like totally like just out of home services, out of everything.
Anything could be a home service company or anything. Just, is there anything that you've thought about that's like, man, if I had time to do that, I would like to do that.
With the skills that I have, I would probably try to create content for reels, for short form content, and develop digital products to sell through short form content.
Like education?
Educational products through short form content. So TikTok, Reels, these kind of things that can go super viral. I would use AI to create content that is like, I would obviously want to use authentic content that's from me, but I would use AI to formulate it and create a course or create ebooks. And then I would create short form content using comedic style organic reels and point them towards educational products that way. Probably that would be something that would just be fun for me to do. If it was like, hey, you got to make money for your family, like right now, I would definitely be like, as much as I'm really good at digital stuff, home services is where I'd probably turn my head and go, okay, If I got to get out of digital marketing, I'm going to get into home services, specifically probably try to get into HVAC. So
nice. Yeah. Well, you understand how those sausages made over there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And the fastball. Yep. Last question. If you had one sentence to make an impact in somebody's life, what would that be?
One sentence to make impact in somebody's life. You are of divine creation with divine capability. If you partner with God, he will light up your path and make you more successful in whatever you want to do beyond what you could ever imagine.
Perfectly said. Can't improve on that, brother. Perfectly said. Ryan, thanks so much for being on today. How can people get in touch with you?
Obviously, if you want to check out CHIRP, go to CHIRP.com, but don't forget that there's 2 I's, CHIIRP.com. If you'd like to reach me directly, my email is ryan@chirp.com. I'm an open book. You can also add me as a friend on Facebook. Just look me up. You'll see me smiling. And I like to put out fun content. I like to put out, I like to connect. I like having relationships with people. The bigger, the better, as far as this earthly family goes. So feel free to add me there. And yeah, that's how you get me. So
thanks for being on, Ryan.
Jeff, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been fun. This has been Ryan Fenn here with Jeff Dudan. We have been on the home front. Thanks for listening.